The lunch rush at Sunny Burger was in full swing. The small fast food restaurant was buzzing with activity, the smell of fried potatoes and sizzling patties filling the air. People hurried in and out, trying to grab their meals between work, school, and errands. Behind the counter, Maya moved quickly, balancing trays, taking orders, and keeping a smile plastered on her tired face. Maya was young, only 19, but she had learned the value of hard work early. She had started this job 6 months ago to help her family with bills and tuition. Some days were easy, filled with friendly customers and light chatter, but others were long, stressful, and sometimes cruel. She had learned to expect the unexpected and to handle it with patience. "Number 42, fries and a cheeseburger," Maya called out, placing a tray on the counter for a waiting customer. Her hands were quick, practiced, moving faster than her tired body sometimes wanted. A small line had formed behind her, and she greeted each customer politely, though exhaustion weighed on her shoulders. As she reached for another tray, the door swung open with a loud bang. Maya glanced up and saw a man walking in briskly, his expression sharp, almost angry. He was well-dressed, in a neatly pressed shirt and dark trousers, but there was a storm cloud in his eyes. He moved toward the counter with purpose, scanning the menu overhead like he was searching for a mistake. "Next in line, please," Maya said with a calm smile, trying to keep her tone friendly despite the man's frown. "Finally," the man muttered under his breath, loud enough for others to hear. He slammed a hand on the counter as if demanding attention. "I've been waiting forever in traffic, and I want this order perfect. No mistakes." Maya nodded politely, trying not to let his sharp tone shake her. She had heard it all before, rude customers, impossible demands. But she had learned that keeping calm was better than arguing. "Of course, sir. What would you like to order?" she asked. He glanced at the menu overhead, tapping his fingers impatiently. "I want a double cheeseburger, extra onions, no pickles, fries with light, salt, and a large soda. And I want it done fast." Maya quickly typed the order into the register, keeping her smile steady. Her hands moved automatically, entering the details while also preparing the tray. "Anything else?" she asked, trying to finish politely. The man shook his head. "Just make sure you get it right. I don't have time for mistakes. And don't bother me with questions." Maya nodded, trying not to let his tone pierce her. She knew some customers took their frustration out on workers, and she had learned to absorb it silently. She turned to the back, signaling the kitchen staff to start preparing his order. As she worked, she heard him muttering to himself loudly. "Unbelievable! How slow can this place be? Probably the dumbest staff I've seen in years." Maya felt her stomach twist. She wanted to say something, to defend herself, but she knew that reacting could make things worse. So, she took a deep breath and focused on her tasks, stacking fries and checking burgers. Her hands trembled slightly, but she kept moving, refusing, to show that his words hurt her. Other customers in line began to notice. Some exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of sympathy and discomfort. A few whispered quietly to each other about how rude the man was being. Maya could feel their eyes, and it made her feel small and exposed. She hated feeling powerless in front of someone who had no right to speak that way. The man leaned over the counter, his voice sharp. "Are you even listening? I said extra onions. Did you even write it down?" Maya nodded politely. "Yes, sir. Extra onions, no pickles. I've entered your order exactly as you requested." The man's lips curled into a smirk, but his eyes still held anger. "Good. Don't screw it up, or you'll regret it." Maya's fingers tightened slightly around the tray, but she forced herself to remain calm. She had learned to endure insults and unkind words, but this time it felt heavier. The weight of his rudeness made her feel invisible, like her hard work and effort didn't matter at all. The kitchen staff worked efficiently, but the man continued to complain. "I hope You don't make me wait too long. Some people are just useless. I can't believe they let you work here. Maya's heart sank. She could feel her cheeks flush with embarrassment as other customers looked at her, silently judging or worrying. It was unfair, she knew, but in that moment it felt like the world had narrowed down to this man's anger. She wanted to disappear, to escape into the back room where no one could see her struggle. But then, a voice came from behind her, calm, firm, and authoritative. "Sir, please step back and wait patiently. Our staff is doing their best." Maya looked up to see the restaurant manager, Mr. Ramirez, walking toward the counter. He was tall, with kind eyes and a presence that demanded respect without shouting. He stopped beside Maya, his gaze steady on the rude customer. The man turned, his anger toward the manager now. "Who are you to tell me how to act? I'm the customer. I should be treated better." Mr. Ramirez didn't flinch. He stood straight, his hands relaxed at his sides, and spoke evenly. "Everyone deserves respect here, sir. We ask that you treat our staff politely while you wait for your order." Maya felt a spark of relief. Someone had noticed. Someone was standing up for her. She tried to keep working, but her hands moved a little faster, her heart lighter knowing she wasn't alone in this battle of words. The other customers murmured in surprise. Some nodded subtly, grateful that someone had taken charge. The man's expression faltered slightly, clearly not expecting anyone to challenge him so calmly. Maya took a deep breath and continued preparing the order, trying to focus on the task instead of the lingering sting of insults. She could feel a small sense of hope that maybe, just maybe, things would be different this time. The lunch rush continued around them, busy and loud, but in that small corner of the restaurant, a quiet tension remained. It was a moment suspended. In time, a test of patience, respect, and human decency. Maya knew that whatever happened next, she had survived the first wave, and now the rest was out of her hands. The momentary calm Maya felt faded quickly. The rude customer, Mr. Lawson, was clearly not used to being told to behave. He crossed his arms and tapped his foot impatiently, his frown deepening. "I don't care about respect. I pay for food. I should get treated like a king," he snapped, his voice carrying across the crowded restaurant. Maya froze for a moment behind the counter. Her fingers hovered over the register, her heart racing. She had faced rude customers before, but the sharpness in Mr. Lawson's voice made her feel exposed. Every eye in the restaurant seemed to linger on her, silently waiting to see what she would do. Mr. Ramirez, the manager, stepped a little closer. His eyes were calm, but his presence was strong enough to create a boundary between Maya and the angry man. "Sir," he said evenly, "paying for food does not give anyone the right to disrespect others. Our staff works hard, and they deserve politeness just as much as you deserve your order." Maya felt a small wave of relief wash over her. It was comforting to see someone else stand up for her, someone calm and authoritative. Still, Mr. Lawson's anger did not fade. He leaned forward, lowering his voice so it was both quiet and threatening. "You think you can tell me how to act? Do you know who I am? I will make sure this place regrets this." The words hung in the air. Maya's hands shook slightly as she prepared the tray. Her chest tightened with anxiety. The customers nearby shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension. Some whispered to each other while others just stared, frozen. Maya wanted to shrink into herself, but she forced her body to keep moving. "Sir," Mr. Ramirez said, his voice firm but calm, "threats and insults are not welcome here. If you continue this behavior, I will have to ask you to leave." Maya watched, fascinated and nervous, as the man's anger wavered. His eyes darted around the restaurant, noticing the other customers now staring at him. For the first time, he seemed unsure, as if no one had expected him to be confronted. How dare you?" Mr. Lawson snapped, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Maya could see that he was frustrated by the challenge. It was as if the manager's calm, authority had cracked through the wall of rage he had built around himself. Trying to focus, Maya kept preparing his tray. She added the fries, carefully checking the salt, and placed the burger on top, making sure it matched the exact specifications he had given. Her hands worked automatically, but inside she was still anxious, afraid that the man might continue to lash out. Meanwhile, Mr. Ramirez subtly signaled to another employee, Sam, to stand nearby as support in case the situation escalated. The small team behind the counter had a quiet strength now, united by the manager's presence. Maya noticed the change, feeling a little less alone and a little more protected. Mr. Lawson took a step back, his face red but his voice slightly quieter. "I don't understand why you're treating me like a child. I just want my food, nothing else." "You will get your food," Mr. Ramirez said calmly, "but we will not tolerate insults or threats. We all deserve respect." Maya felt her heart lighten. It was the first time someone had publicly defended her like this, and it gave her courage. She straightened her posture and finished assembling the tray, carefully placing the soda in the cup holder. Her movements were steady, her mind focused on the task rather than the hurtful words. As she slid the tray across to Mr. Lawson, he grabbed it quickly, scanning the food with an annoyed expression. "Fine. This better be right," he muttered. Maya held her breath, waiting for a sign of satisfaction or further complaint. To her surprise, he didn't immediately complain. He frowned, taking a bite of the burger and then pausing. Maya noticed that he seemed uncertain, almost confused. It was as if the calm firmness of the manager and the polite professionalism of the staff had thrown him off balance. Maya's shoulders relaxed slightly, though her heart still pounded. Other customers watched the scene with quiet fascination. Some even smiled subtly at the way the manager had handled the situation, while others whispered compliments about Maya's patience and composure. The restaurant slowly returned to its usual rhythm, though a quiet tension lingered in the air. Mr. Lawson muttered something under his breath and walked toward a table, sitting down reluctantly. He ate in silence, glancing occasionally at the staff, as if testing whether anyone would challenge him again. Maya stood behind the counter for a moment, taking a deep breath. She could feel her hands finally stop trembling. The adrenaline from the confrontation had left her body tired but also strangely empowered. She realized that enduring rudeness was never easy, but having someone on her side made a huge difference. Mr. Ramirez leaned slightly toward her, his voice low but kind. "You handled yourself very well, Maya. I know it wasn't easy, but you stayed professional, and that matters." Maya felt a warm wave of gratitude. "Thank you, sir," she said quietly. It was hard, but I tried." "You did more than just try," Mr. Ramirez replied with a small smile. "You showed patience and professionalism. That's what makes a great team member." Maya's chest swelled with pride. It was a small moment, but it meant a lot. In a world where rude words could sting, having respect and support mattered even more. As she returned to the other orders, her movements felt lighter, almost easier than before. The tension that had weighed on her now seemed smaller, less overwhelming. Other customers in line smiled at her politely, giving her nods of encouragement. Some even whispered quietly, admiring how she had kept her composure in a difficult moment. Maya realized that this one rude customer could not define her day or her worth. With the manager's support and her own strength, she could face challenges and still hold her dignity. The lunch rush continued, but the sting of Mr. Lawson's insults had lessened. Maya worked with a renewed sense of determination, quietly, proud of herself for surviving the storm and grateful for the unexpected ally beside her. She knew more challenges might come, but for now she had learned that respect, patience, and calm authority could stand up to even the harshest words. After the rude customer, Mr. Lawson, had finally settled at a corner table, Maya felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. The tension that had built up in the restaurant seemed to hang around her shoulders like a heavy coat, and she needed a moment to breathe. Behind the counter, she leaned slightly against the register, taking a deep breath and letting her hands rest for a second. It had been a hard day already, and dealing with someone as aggressive as Mr. Lawson had pushed her to her limits. Maya thought about her parents and how they worked long hours, always encouraging her to stay strong and kind, no matter what life threw at her. She remembered their words. Patience is a strength, not weakness. Never let anger control you, but never let disrespect slide either. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, replaying the man's insults in her mind. Each word still stung, sharper than she wanted to admit. Probably the dumbest staff I've seen in years. How slow can this place be? Her cheeks flushed slightly and she felt a knot in her stomach. She hated feeling humiliated in front of others. But alongside the hurt, there was something else, something she hadn't felt before. Seeing her manager, Mr. Ramirez, stand up for her gave her a strange warmth, a sense of protection. She realized that even when words tried to knock her down, kindness and authority could lift her back. Up! As she wiped down the counter, Maya noticed Mr. Lawson glancing around, his expression unreadable. He was eating quietly now, but there was an edge to him, a restlessness that suggested he wasn't finished yet. Some of the other customers had returned to their meals, but a few were watching him discreetly, curious to see if he would create more trouble. Maya felt the weight of responsibility. She wanted to focus on her work, on serving the customers politely and efficiently, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the man's anger might flare up again. Every movement she made felt measured, careful, as if one wrong gesture could reignite the storm. She looked up at Mr. Ramirez, who was checking on other staff quietly, but keeping an eye on the rude customer. He gave her a small nod, a silent message of reassurance. Maya returned the nod, feeling a little more confident. The manager's calm presence made her believe that she wasn't alone in facing challenges. Maya thought about how quickly people judged others. Mr. Lawson had walked in with assumptions, ready to insult anyone in his path. And yet, he had met someone who would not bow to rudeness, someone who demanded respect for the staff. Maya realized that people often tested boundaries, sometimes intentionally, sometimes out of stress, but it didn't mean they could control how others felt about themselves. She glanced at the tray of orders waiting to be delivered to the tables. She moved carefully, serving each customer with a smile that felt more genuine than it had in a while. Her movements were precise, her mind alert, but her heart felt lighter. Even though the rude customer had tried to make her feel small, she had stood her ground indirectly through her patience and professionalism. Mr. Lawson, on the other hand, was visibly uncomfortable. He kept glancing at the counter, noticing how calm and efficient Maya and the other staff were. It was a small but powerful moment. For the first time, he seemed unsure, as if he had expected the staff to crumble under his insults. The balance of power had shifted quietly, almost invisibly, and Maya could sense it without saying a word. Despite the relief, Maya couldn't ignore a flicker of fear. She worried that the man might escalate again, maybe even involve the staff in more arguments. Her mind raced through possible scenarios. What if he shouted? What if he demanded a refund? What if the situation got out of control? But then she reminded herself of what Mr. Ramirez had shown her. Calmness and authority could prevent chaos. She had seen it firsthand. His quiet confidence had made the rude customer pause and think, and it had reminded Maya that strength didn't always come from shouting or fighting back. Sometimes it came from staying composed, staying kind, and letting justice unfold naturally. As the lunch rush slowed, Maya found a brief moment to sit on a small stool behind the counter. Her legs were tired, and her shoulders ached from hours of constant movement. But her mind was buzzing. She thought about how words could hurt deeply, but how words of support and fairness could heal just as much. Customers continued to finish their meals, and some of them offered quiet smiles or kind nods toward Maya as if acknowledging her patience and effort. The small gestures made her feel noticed and appreciated. It reminded her that not everyone in the world was rude or unkind. For every person like Mr. Lawson, there were others who saw the hard work and valued it, even silently. Maya's thoughts wandered to the rest of the day ahead. She knew there would be more customers, more orders, and maybe more challenges. But she also realized that she had grown stronger. She had faced rudeness directly, without letting it break her, and with the support of a manager who truly cared. For a moment, she let herself feel a quiet pride. She had survived a storm of insults, remained professional, and learned a valuable lesson about resilience and dignity. The restaurant, with its steady hum of activity, felt a little safer, a little brighter, as if the tension had lifted just enough for her to breathe freely again. And even as she glanced at Mr. Lawson, now silently eating and no longer shouting, Maya felt a sense of calm determination. She knew that no matter what challenges came her way, she could face them. Patience, respect, and quiet strength could stand up to even the harshest words. It was a small victory, but to Maya it felt monumental. In a world where rudeness and impatience often ruled, she had discovered a quiet power within herself, and she knew it would carry her through whatever the next challenge might be. The lunch rush had finally begun to slow, leaving the restaurant with a quieter hum of conversation and the occasional clatter of trays and plates. Maya wiped the counter carefully, her hands moving in a rhythm that had become almost automatic. Yet her mind kept returning to the rude customer, Mr. Lawson, who sat at a corner table, tapping his fingers impatiently and scowling at the staff. She could feel his eyes on her, even when she wasn't looking. Each glance carried an unspoken challenge, a test of her patience and composure. Maya tried to ignore it, focusing on refilling drinks and checking orders, but the tension was tangible. Her shoulders were stiff, and a low, nervous hum of anxiety ran through her chest. From behind the counter, Mr. Ramirez watched the scene carefully. He had been quiet, letting Maya handle the orders while he observed the rude customer's behavior. But now he could see that Mr. Lawson was growing more frustrated. His voice had lowered into mutters and sighs, but the irritation radiated from him, spilling over into the calm atmosphere of the restaurant. Mr. Ramirez stepped forward slightly, his expression thoughtful. He didn't rush in or raise his voice, because he knew that reacting hastily could make the situation worse. Instead, he took a deep breath, planning his next move carefully. Maya noticed the small, confident movements, the way he adjusted his stance and kept his hands relaxed. Even without speaking, he radiated authority. Maya took a steadying breath herself. She knew she couldn't control Mr. Lawson's behavior, but she could control her own reactions. The manager's calm presence reminded her that she wasn't alone, and that gave her strength. She squared her shoulders and continued her work, carefully sliding trays to waiting customers and making polite small talk. Each smile, each careful gesture was a small act of defiance against the rude man's insults. Meanwhile, Mr. Lawson's frustration grew. He picked at his fries and muttered under his breath, clearly displeased with the food or perhaps still irritated by the confrontation with the manager. "Unbelievable," he muttered, loud enough for a few nearby customers to hear. "This place is a disaster. How do they let people like her work here?" Maya's hands shook slightly as she refilled a drink, but she refused to show any reaction. She focused on her work, counting calories for herself mentally, doing anything to stay composed. She could hear some of the other customers whispering to each other, exchanging glances as they watched the scene unfold. Maya felt both embarrassment and gratitude. Embarrassment that someone had insulted her so openly, and gratitude that people were noticing her efforts and the manager's handling of the situation. Mr. Ramirez stepped closer to the rude customer's table, keeping his tone calm but firm. "Sir," he said, his voice carrying just enough for Mr. Lawson to hear clearly, "I understand you want your meal quickly, but continuing to speak disrespectfully to our staff is not acceptable. We want everyone in this restaurant to be treated with respect." Maya felt her chest tighten with anticipation. She knew this could go one of two ways. The man could escalate, or he could finally back down. She glanced at the other staff members who had paused their work slightly, watching the interaction. Even they seemed aware that this was a pivotal moment. Mr. Lawson's eyes narrowed. "And what if I don't want to? You're just a manager. I don't have to listen to you," he snapped, his voice rising just enough to draw attention from the few remaining customers. Mr. Ramirez did not flinch. He remained calm, his tone even but authoritative. "Treating others with respect is not optional here, sir. You are welcome to enjoy your meal, but only if you do so politely. Otherwise, I will have to ask you to leave." For a moment, Mr. Lawson froze. Maya could see the uncertainty flicker across his face. No one had challenged him like this before. No one had spoken calmly but firmly enough to make him hesitate. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing at the other customers who were now watching him with quiet interest. Maya felt a strange mix of hope and fear. She wanted the situation to end peacefully, but she also knew the man's pride might push him to resist. Her hands tightened slightly around a tray, but she forced herself to remain calm, taking slow, steady breaths. Mr. Lawson's muttering grew quieter, almost as if he were thinking through what to do next. He stared at his food, taking a bite, but chewing slowly, clearly irritated by the manager's words. Maya noticed the small, subtle changes, the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands fidgeted, the slight twitch of his jaw. Mr. Ramirez watched him carefully, his expression unreadable but patient. He knew that confrontation was not about anger or shouting. It was about maintaining control, showing respect for the staff, and making it clear that rude behavior had consequences. Maya realized that she had learned an important lesson by watching him. Strength did not always roar. Sometimes it was quiet, steady, and unwavering. The restaurant hummed quietly around them. Other customers began finishing their meals, some offering polite nods or smiles toward Maya. She felt a sense of reassurance in those small gestures, realizing that not everyone in the world was unkind. Even small acts of support mattered. Finally, Mr. Lawson sighed, leaning back in his chair. Maya held her breath, unsure if he would speak. "Fine," he muttered almost grudgingly. "I'll behave. Just bring me the check after." Mr. Ramirez nodded calmly. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate your cooperation." Maya exhaled slowly, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. The storm had passed, at least for now. She returned to the counter, her movements steadier and more confident. The manager gave her a small, approving nod, and she felt a warm sense of gratitude and pride. For the rest of the afternoon, Maya worked with a renewed energy. The rude customer had not won. The manager's calm authority and her own patience had prevented further conflict. The restaurant returned to its normal rhythm, filled with friendly chatter, laughter, and the hum of customers enjoying their meals. Maya realized that this small victory was more than just about handling one rude customer. It was about dignity, respect, and the quiet strength to face challenges without losing composure. She had endured, learned, and grown stronger. And as she wiped down the counter one last time before a short break, she felt ready to face whatever came next, knowing she had the support of her manager and the respect of those around her. The restaurant had finally settled into a calmer rhythm, but the tension from earlier lingered like a shadow over the corner table where Mr. Lawson sat. He picked at his fries, muttering under his breath, still clearly dissatisfied. Maya tried to focus on her work, refilling drinks and preparing trays, but her thoughts kept drifting back to him. She felt the lingering sting of his earlier insults, even though Mr. Ramirez had handled the confrontation so calmly. From behind the counter, Mr. Ramirez watched carefully. He had noticed the subtle shift in the rude customer's behavior. Mr. Lawson was eating, but he was restless, fidgeting with his napkin and glancing toward the staff frequently. The calm authority that Mr. Ramirez had displayed had softened the man's aggression, but it had not entirely erased his impatience or his sense of superiority. Mr. Ramirez took a deep breath. He knew that simply letting the customer sit quietly would not fully resolve the tension. There was a choice to be made. He could either continue to tolerate the silent scowl, or he could respond in a way that would restore dignity not only to Maya, but also to the entire staff and the observing customers. He chose the latter. He walked steadily toward Mr. Lawson's table, his presence calm but commanding. The other customers quieted, sensing that something important was about to happen. Maya paused, her hands still on the counter, watching closely. She felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. "Sir," Mr. Ramirez began, his voice low but firm, carrying clearly across the small distance. "I want to take a moment to address what happened earlier. Our staff works hard to provide good service, and they deserve respect from everyone who enters this restaurant." Mr. Lawson looked up, his lips pressed together, clearly expecting another confrontation. His eyes narrowed slightly, waiting to assert his dominance. But Mr. Ramirez continued, calm and deliberate. "Maya," he said, turning slightly to nod toward her, "has handled herself with professionalism and patience, despite your insults and harsh words. She did not react with anger, but instead focused on her work, serving you politely and correctly. That is the behavior we value here, and it deserves recognition, not disrespect." A hush fell over the restaurant. The other customers leaned in slightly, surprised by the manager's words. Some nodded in quiet agreement. Maya's cheeks flushed, and her heart began to pound, not from fear this time, but from an unexpected sense of pride. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. Her manager was publicly defending her in front of the entire restaurant. Mr. Lawson opened his mouth, but Mr. Ramirez held up a hand, signaling that he had not yet finished. "Respect is not optional, sir. It is not just about manners. It is about acknowledging the effort, dedication, and humanity of those around you. Treating people poorly does not make your experience better. It only diminishes your own character." Maya felt a warm sense of relief wash over her. The words were powerful, not because they shouted or threatened, but because they carried truth and authority. She watched as Mr. Lawson's expression faltered, the arrogance and anger giving way to uncertainty. For the first time, it seemed that he had no ready response. The other customers in the restaurant began to murmur quietly, some whispering compliments to each other about the manager's handling of the situation. One older woman smiled subtly at Maya, giving her a nod of approval. Another customer whispered, "That manager just shut him down without yelling once. Incredible." Mr. Ramirez's voice softened slightly, still firm but compassionate. "We all make mistakes. We all have bad days. But taking it out on someone else, especially someone doing their best, is never acceptable." Maya handled this with patience and dignity. "I want everyone here to recognize that and remember that respect is earned and given equally." Maya's chest swelled with pride. Her manager was not only defending her, he was teaching everyone in the restaurant a valuable lesson about kindness, respect, and human decency. She felt a strange combination of relief, joy, and empowerment. She realized that enduring the earlier insults had been painful, but it had also allowed her to witness a powerful example of leadership and integrity. Mr. Lawson's face was red, his pride bruised. He fidgeted uncomfortably in his chair, clearly not used to being spoken to in such a way. Maya could see the shift in his demeanor. He was no longer scowling confidently. He was subdued, almost embarrassed. He muttered something under his breath, but it was quiet, almost inaudible, and he avoided eye contact with anyone. Mr. Ramirez returned to the counter, his expression calm but satisfied. Maya, he said quietly, so only she could hear. You handled that very well. I am proud of how you stayed composed and professional. That is the mark of someone who can succeed in any challenge. Maya felt a warmth rise in her chest. Thank you, sir, she said softly. I just wanted to do my job right. And you did, Mr. Ramirez replied with a gentle smile. And now everyone here knows it. That includes our customers, who just witnessed the importance of respect and professionalism. Maya took a deep breath, letting the tension leave her body. The lunch rush had taken a toll, but this moment had lifted her spirit higher than she had expected. She realized that the manager's intervention had not just defended her, it had changed the atmosphere in the restaurant. Other staff members resumed their work with renewed confidence, and even the remaining customers seemed lighter, more comfortable, as if the invisible weight of tension had been removed. Mr. Lawson finished his meal quietly, clearly subdued and reflective. He left the restaurant without another word, his earlier arrogance gone. Maya watched him leave, a sense of closure settling over her. The storm had passed, and dignity had been restored. The rest of the afternoon moved smoothly. Maya continued, her work with a lighter heart, serving customers with a genuine smile and renewed energy. She felt a deep appreciation for her manager, not just for defending her, but for showing what true leadership looked like: calm, fair, and just. As the shift began to wind down, Maya paused behind the counter, taking a moment to reflect. She realized that this day, though challenging, had taught her something invaluable: that patience, professionalism, and integrity could withstand even the harshest insults, and that having someone stand with you made all the difference. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of life, but to Maya, it felt monumental. And as she glanced at Mr. Ramirez, giving her a final approving nod before moving to check on the next task, she knew that respect and kindness had won, not just for her, but for everyone present that day. The restaurant had finally settled into a peaceful rhythm. The lunch rush was over, leaving behind the soft hum of conversation and the occasional clatter of dishes. Maya wiped down the counter one last time, her hands moving slowly now, no longer driven by the nervous energy of the earlier confrontation. She could finally breathe. She glanced around the restaurant. The customers who had stayed were chatting quietly, some smiling at the staff or nodding politely as they collected their trays. There was a lightness in the air that had been missing earlier, as if the storm brought by Mr. Lawson had passed, leaving calm and order behind. Maya felt her chest relax, a weight lifting that she hadn't even realized had been pressing on. Her eyes met Mr. Ramirez, who was tidying up near the kitchen entrance. He caught her gaze and gave her a small, reassuring smile. It was a quiet acknowledgement, a reminder that she had handled herself well and that she was not alone. Maya felt a warm wave of gratitude. She had worked hard, and for the first time she felt truly seen and appreciated, not just for completing tasks, but for enduring rudeness with dignity. Maya stepped behind the counter and took a seat on a small stool, letting herself relax for a moment. She replayed the events of the afternoon in her mind. The rude customer, the harsh words, the nervous energy she had felt. It all seemed surreal now. She thought about how quickly her pride had been challenged, and how the manager's calm intervention had shifted everything. She realized that moments like these were rare. Often, workers like her had to endure insults and impatience silently, leaving them feeling powerless and unseen. But today had been different. Today, someone had recognized her effort, stood by her, and reminded everyone in the restaurant what respect truly meant. Maya's thoughts wandered to the other staff members. Sam, who had been quietly helping in the background, was now stacking trays and smiling softly. Lena, who had taken orders at another counter, was chatting with a customer who complimented her service. Maya felt a sense of connection to them. realizing that this small team had faced the challenge together and had come out stronger. The memory of Mr. Lawson's insults still lingered, but it was no longer a sharp sting. Instead, it was a reminder of her own resilience and patience. She realized that insults only had power if she allowed them to control her emotions. Today, she had chosen not to let them. She had stayed professional, calm, and respectful, and in return, she had gained something far more valuable: confidence and self-respect. Mr. Ramirez walked over to her, carrying a small stack of papers from the office. "Maya," he said quietly, "I want you to know that what you did today matters. Not everyone can stay composed under pressure, but you did. You represented yourself and this restaurant with dignity. That makes a difference not just for the customers, but for your colleagues as well." Maya smiled, a little shyly, but her eyes shone with gratitude. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. I just wanted to do my job right." "And you did," he replied. "Sometimes it's not just about doing your job, but about how you handle the unexpected. You showed patience, respect, and professionalism. That is what makes a great team member, and that is what people notice even if they don't always say it." Maya felt a deep sense of pride. For weeks, she had wondered if she was doing enough, if her effort mattered, if anyone would notice. Today had shown her that it did. Even in the face of rudeness, even under stress, her composure and dedication had been acknowledged and respected. As she returned to clearing the last few tables, Maya felt lighter, more confident in her role. Customers finished their meals, thanked the staff politely, and left with smiles. The small gestures of appreciation, thank yous, nods, and smiles, meant more than words. Maya realized that respect and kindness could often be quieter than rudeness, but they carried far more weight. For a moment, she paused behind the counter, looking out the window at the sunlit street outside. The chaos of the lunch rush had passed, and the restaurant felt calm, welcoming, and bright again. She thought about how easily things could have gone differently if Mr. Ramirez had not intervened, if the rude customer had continued unchecked, if she had reacted in anger. The outcome could have been tense, uncomfortable, or even humiliating. Instead, it had ended with dignity. Maya understood now that true strength was not in confrontation or shouting. It was in calm, composed responses, in the quiet assertion of respect, and in standing by what was right. She had learned a lesson she would carry with her beyond this restaurant, beyond this job, and into the rest of her life. As the evening approached, Maya finally stepped away from the counter, letting Sam and Lena take over the last tasks before closing. She felt a quiet satisfaction, the kind that comes from overcoming a challenge and learning from it. She looked at the other staff members and smiled, feeling a sense of camaraderie and shared accomplishment. Mr. Ramirez called her over, one last time. "Maya, I just want you to remember this day. You handled yourself well, and I hope you take pride in that. Respect and kindness are powerful tools, and today you used them both." Maya nodded, her eyes shining. "I will, sir. Thank you for everything." As she walked out of the restaurant, the cool evening air brushing against her face, Maya felt a deep sense of peace. The rude customer had tested her patience, but she had endured, and she had been seen, valued, and supported. For the first time, she realized that respect was a circle. It started with how you treat others, and it returned in equal measure when it was earned. It had been a long, challenging day, but Maya felt stronger, wiser, and more confident than she had in months. The restaurant had not only served food that day, it had served a lesson in human dignity, kindness, and resilience. And Maya carried that lesson with her, ready to face whatever challenges awaited tomorrow. The evening had fallen, and the restaurant was quiet now. The last of the customers had left, leaving only the soft hum of the refrigerators and the gentle clatter of dishes being stacked. Maya leaned against the counter, her apron still tied. Neatly, her hair a little messy from the busy day. She exhaled deeply, letting the tension that had built up throughout the afternoon finally escape. It had been a long, challenging day, one she knew she would never forget. She thought about Mr. Lawson, the rude customer who had stormed in earlier, yelling and insulting without care. At the time, it had felt humiliating, as if the weight of his words could crush her confidence. But now, reflecting on everything that had happened, Maya realized that the experience had been far more than just an unpleasant encounter. It had been a lesson in resilience, patience, and dignity. She thought about Mr. Ramirez, her manager, and the way he had stepped in. Calm, steady, and fair, he had handled the situation perfectly. He had not shouted, he had not threatened, yet he had restored order and commanded respect. Maya felt a surge of gratitude and admiration. His actions had reminded her that true authority was not about power, but about wisdom, patience, and fairness. Maya walked through the restaurant, checking that everything was in place. Tables were wiped clean, chairs were aligned, and the floors were spotless. She felt a quiet satisfaction in the work itself, a sense that order and care could bring comfort and calm, even after chaos. She smiled to herself, realizing that part of the lesson was seeing the value in her own effort. Sam and Lena were still tidying up. "You did amazing today," Sam said quietly as Maya passed by. "That guy was awful, but you stayed calm the whole time." Maya shook her head gently. "I couldn't have done it without Mr. Ramirez. He made a difference." Lena nodded in agreement. "Yeah, it's rare to see a manager handle something like that so well. You both set an example today." Maya felt warmth in her chest. It was one thing to survive a difficult situation. It was another to realize that others had noticed her composure and effort. For the first time, she felt a deep sense of pride, not arrogance, but quiet confidence. She had faced humiliation, yet she had remained herself. As she returned to the counter to close the register, Maya thought about the lessons the day had taught her. Patience was not passive, strength was not loud, respect was earned not through dominance, but through fairness and integrity. And she had witnessed all of these qualities firsthand. Mr. Ramirez approached her one last time before leaving for the evening. "Maya," he said, his voice calm and gentle. "Today was challenging, but you handled it beautifully. Remember this moment. The way you stood your ground, the way you treated everyone with professionalism. These are lessons you will carry with you far beyond this restaurant." Maya nodded, her eyes shining. "I will, sir. Thank you. For everything." He smiled warmly, patting her shoulder lightly before heading out the door. Maya watched him leave, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. The manager had not just defended her, he had guided her, shown her what courage and composure looked like in action. Maya sat down for a moment, letting the quiet of the empty restaurant sink in. She thought about Mr. Lawson one last time. He had left without incident, humbled perhaps, or at least aware that he could not treat people disrespectfully without consequences. Maya realized that she had not just endured his insults, she had been part of teaching him a lesson about respect. The thought brought a small smile to her face. It was empowering to know that she had handled the situation with dignity, and that her composure had mattered. She understood now that challenges were not just obstacles. They were opportunities to show who you really were. Her eyes wandered across the restaurant. The small team of workers, the neatly arranged tables, the now empty corner where the rude customer had sat. It all felt like a small kingdom restored to peace after a storm. Maya felt proud to be a part of it, proud to have survived and learned from the experience. As she straightened the last chairs, Maya realized how much she had grown in just one day. She had faced fear and humiliation, yet she had remained strong. She had seen leadership and fairness in action, and she had learned the quiet power of calm and dignity. These were lessons she knew she would carry with her in this job and in life. Maya stood behind the counter one last time, looking around the empty restaurant. The day had been difficult, but it had ended with dignity restored and lessons learned. She felt a deep sense of calm, knowing that she had faced a challenge that could have broken her, yet had come through stronger and wiser. Finally, Maya removed her apron and hung it neatly in the staff locker. She stepped out into the cool evening air, feeling the breeze against her face. The city lights twinkled softly, and she realized how small yet significant today had been. A rude customer had tried to belittle her, but she had endured. With guidance, patience, and her own inner strength, she had come out victorious, not by winning a fight, but by standing tall with dignity. Maya walked home slowly, reflecting on the day and the lessons she had learned. She knew that challenges would come again, that not everyone would be kind or patient, and that insults and rudeness would never completely disappear. But she also knew something far more important. She had the strength to face them, to remain calm, and to hold her dignity above all else. By the time she reached her apartment, Maya felt a quiet sense of completion. The storm had passed. The lessons had been learned, and she felt empowered, proud, and ready for whatever came next. The day had tested her, but it had also taught her a vital truth. Respect, patience, and calm strength could overcome even the harshest words. And in that knowledge, Maya found peace, pride, and a quiet joy that she would carry with her always.